Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we cut through the noise and go straight to the hidden mechanisms driving the world around us.
Mhm.
Today, we are diving deep into politics, but we're putting down the traditional voter guides and picking up, well, something like a microscope.
That's a good way to put it.
Hmm,
Our mission today is to show you how political life, especially, participating in an election, isn't just about your intellect or ideology.
right.
It's profoundly shaped by your internal chemistry. We're looking at sources that explore how your body's own control system, your stress and reward chemicals, can dictate both who participates and how political messages are designed to move you.
Okay, so we have two chemical headliners for this deep dive. First up, there's cortisol.
The stress hormone,
Exactly. You know it as the thing that screams vigilance, danger.
Yeah.
And then second, we've got dopamine,
which is the chemical of anticipation, of reward, the motivator.
the one that gets you chasing a goal.
Right. And we're going to start with a really surprising finding about voters themselves. I mean, for decades, we've explained political participation using demographics.
The usual suspects: age, income, education.
Exactly. But our first source suggests that physiology, your actual biology, offers a stable, fundamental marker for participation that we've pretty much ignored.
I think this is where it gets really, really interesting because this study didn't just, rely on what people said they did.
Which is a huge problem in this research.
A huge problem. People tend to over-report how politically active they are. So instead, this research tracked 105 participants and checked their verified voting records.
Across 6 national elections, and here's the core result. They found a significant link between stable, lower baseline salivary cortisol.
So the amount of stress hormone in your body.
The amount of stress hormone just circulating in the late afternoon, and increased actual voting frequency. Essentially, the less baseline stress chemistry you have in your system, the more likely you were to consistently go vote.
Okay, that feels counterintuitive. I would think more stress means more engagement, but you're saying low stress is the key. Did that finding hold up when they adjusted for all the normal variables?
It absolutely did.
Like how much money you make, your education level, all of that.
All of it. Baseline cortisol predicted significant variation in voting behavior, even when controlling for those traditional factors. So this suggests it's not a temporary mood swing.
It's a stable trait.
It's a stable personality trait rooted in your physiology that's helping determine if you're going to be an active voter over time.
So if low cortisol drives voting, what's the theory for why high stress levels would keep someone away? Why would voting itself be so stressful?
Well, the theory connects high cortisol to basically an avoidance strategy.
Yeah.
Elevated stable stress levels later in the day are linked to personality types that are they're more prone to anxiety. They're highly sensitive to conflict.
And politics is nothing but conflict.
Politics, particularly in the U.S., is a high-conflict, winner-take-all environment. It's inherently stressful. So individuals who are biologically wired to have a lower threshold for social stress might just find participating in these contested elections too unpalatable.
They're avoiding the ballot box because they're avoiding the fight.
They're avoiding the conflict that is inherent in that political environment. Yeah.
But here's a fascinating wrinkle in that, though. The correlation didn't apply to everything.
Yeah.
High baseline stress hormones did not strongly predict if you would do other political things like attend a rally or donate money.
Or even go to an organized religious activity.
It was specific to the act of casting a vote.
Which is a crucial distinction, and we will circle back to why that matters later. But first, I think we should pivot from the individual voter's chemistry to the campaign strategist's playbook.
Okay.
Because if these chemicals dictate our behavior, you can bet political strategists are trying to intentionally push those chemical buttons.
That's the strategic shift. So campaign messaging is this constant effort to trigger either the cortisol pathway
The threat response.
or the dopamine pathway, the anticipation.
Exactly. The cortisol pathway is the mobilization tool built on threat. When strategists use messages centered on imminent danger crime waves, a border invasion, corruption, they trigger biological urgency.
Or cortisol release.
That release of cortisol sharpens your attention, it intensifies suspicion of the other side, and it drives voters toward leaders who promise swift security and order.
And on the flip side, you have the dopamine pathway, which is more of a long game, hope and vision.
And dopamine isn't just about feeling good when you get something. The crucial part is that it rewards the pursuit of a goal.
The anticipation.
Yes, the anticipation. Hope-based politics promises future improvement, economic opportunity, moral progress. It binds people together through that shared aspiration.
The excitement of building something better.
That's the one. Now, what's really interesting here is that when we look at political parties, the difference is one of uh, proportion. It's not that one side uses one and one uses the other.
It's about the mix.
It's about the mix.
Mhm.
And the political psychology research we're drawing from shows that people who lean conservative tend to exhibit stronger physiological responses to threat and uncertainty,
And that insight maps directly onto messaging style. So you get what the source calls the threat-first strategy.
which is generally associated with the political right.
It focuses heavily on stability, tradition, and using these neurobiological triggers that are designed for sustained vigilance. So you hear rhetoric centered on, your identity is under attack.
Or the portrayal of society as descending into chaos. Think of Donald Trump's American Carnage speech. That messaging is designed for sustained cortisol activation to keep the base mobilized and fearful.
Right. And then you have the reward-first strategy, which is more often associated with the Democratic coalition. It leans on inclusion, opportunity, shared aspiration.
Tapping that dopamine circuit.
This is why their messaging often focuses on programs promising immediate relief and future gains. Obama's Hope, Build Back Better, framed as jobs and revitalization.
Or even something like student loan forgiveness, which is a promise of both relief and future opportunity.
But of course, as you said, everyone borrows from the other playbook.
Oh, absolutely.
When Democrats frame threats to democracy or climate catastrophe or the loss of reproductive rights, those are powerful, pure cortisol appeals.
Total cortisol appeals.
Oh.
Designed to instill urgency and fear. And Republicans use reward appeals, too. Promises of rapid economic growth or appeals to national pride, the anticipation of America winning again.
So what's the takeaway there?
The key insight is pretty simple. Threat messaging is faster, it's more primal, more visceral. Reward messaging is typically slower. It requires a more sustained narrative of aspiration to build a long-term coalition.
That strategic analysis actually sheds new light on our original finding about voting behavior, that big dissociation we mentioned. Why did baseline stress levels predict whether you voted, but not whether you'd go to a religious service or a political rally?
Well, this raises a fundamental question about the nature of conflict itself. Activities like rallies or religious gatherings are typically characterized by social cohesion.
You with your team.
You're surrounded by people who already agree with you. It's a low-conflict, validating environment.
But the act of casting a ballot, especially in our current political climate, is stressful. It's high-stakes decision-making, emotional conflict between these incompatible adversarial options.
It's just an inherently higher stress activity than chanting slogans with people who are already on your side.
Precisely. And this supports that idea that individuals with a chronically high-stress baseline, those high cortisol individuals, are basically biologically wired to avoid that adversarial act.
That specific act of participating in direct conflict.
So let's try to synthesize this. What does this all mean for you, the listener? We started by saying politics is a contest of biology.
And our sources really seem to confirm that. Political involvement, especially that core act of casting a ballot, is linked to these fundamental, stable physiological traits, defined by our stress response.
The future of political mobilization, then, belongs to the strategists who understand the human nervous system best.
You have to think that messaging is becoming less about complex policy arguments and more about a kind of sophisticated neurobiological engineering.
And that leads us to a final provocative thought. It's one that's suggested by the source material itself. If the most participatory voters, the ones who consistently show up in these highly adversarial elections, are the low cortisol individuals, who are the high cortisol individuals who are staying home?
They might just represent the ideological middle.
The people who aren't deeply invested in either extreme.
Perhaps. People who are physiologically deterred from engaging in the stressful, confrontational nature of modern U.S. politics. And it raises a really uncomfortable question. Is it possible our current adversarial political system effectively screens out certain personality types? You have to wonder, if our politics were less stressful, would we see a very different kind of person showing up to vote? That is something worth mulling over.